Good evening. I'd like to call this Concord Township Zoning Commission meeting to order, Tuesday, December 7th. We have nothing on the agenda for old business, but we do have a couple of items for new business. I guess we'll get right into it here. Let's start off with item number 1 on the agenda, which is a work session for potential zoning text amendments. I know we had a couple of conversations last meeting about a couple of items that we discussed, and Heather, you were going to do a little bit of homework for us and pull some information. Looks like you were able to do that. And then we also have a draft of some environmental restoration plan information. I think that was produced by the, was that done by Soil and Water?
Correct.
Yeah, so we've got that. And then we are looking at some issues with regards to legislation and zoning text amendments with regards to medical marijuana dispensaries and or processors for the township as to which direction we would like to go on that. The last meeting we discussed that maybe it would be prudent to take a more proactive approach to this and kind of get started on it than to be caught in a reactive situation where all of a sudden we're thrust with making a decision on allowing, before something gets to the point where we've got applications or potential applicants that want to move into the township and we don't really have any accommodations set up for that. So we thought that it might be a good idea to tackle this now and maybe start to have some discussions. And I see you put together some information here. Heather, would you like to give us a little review of what you put together for us? Or?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. Did you want to start with dispensaries?
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
And then we can look at the environmental restoration.
Yep.
Okay. So in your packets, what I provided to you was just a couple sections of the Ohio Revised Code that gives the townships the authority to even adopt regulations in regard to regulating cultivators, processors, or retail dispensaries. I know we talked more specifically about the retail aspect of it last month, so that's a little bit more what I focused on, but just for some background information I provided to you also. The state already has set up regulations that highly controls these type of uses, like the retail component, including but not limited to like locations as far as how close they could be to some of these particular uses. So such as churches, public parks, libraries, playgrounds, and schools. So you can see that legislation there. They cannot be within 500 feet of any of those uses, and it's my understanding they measure that from parcel boundary to parcel boundary.
I like how you put the 500 feet on the map.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, so what I tried to do was, on the spreadsheet that I provided you that's blue and white, the table, I went through like all of Concord's assets, quote unquote, that meet these distance requirements. So where are the churches, the parks, the playgrounds, the schools, to kind of get an idea of where could they go if we did, with the current zoning and, with our current assets in place. And so then I took the zoning map here and I thought I overlaid, I did a 500-foot buffer from the boundary of each of these parcels that contain one of those uses that you would have to be 500 feet away from. So that's kind of what you're seeing mapped here. And underneath it is still the zoning district, the zoning map. So I guess if you look at kind of where we're sitting right now, at Town Hall, they're really, the Town Hall Commons District, which is the dark brown, you would not be able to locate any of those businesses there because they fall within 500 feet. The church either here at the corner, or we've got the Greenway corridor that does count as a public park.
Right.
So you can kind of look at, and then if you look over on Cryle Road, you'll see those parcels that are kind of encompassed under the blue, you know, those would not be allowed based on the state's requirements. So that pretty much includes Gristmill Village, and that's really because like the Goddard School is tucked away right behind there, so that is kind of where you're measuring out that 500 feet from. They own 2 lots there. So that, and so it does somewhat limit it based on the fact that we have schools and in these parklands, but there still are several areas, including like on Capitol and Auburn and all of these other commercial districts, basically anywhere that we allow retail under our current definition of retail. A medical marijuana dispensary would be permitted under our current definition. So I did include for your benefit a couple pages of section 22, which is the commercial and industrial district regulations. So you could take a look at that if you turn to page 22.4. And if you look under the retail and personal services, you can see that retail is permitted within the BX district, the gateway business, and the B1 restricted retail. So as it stands right now, under our current definition of retail, these uses could locate within those districts.
Now, did we determine that it is considered retail? Because I know there was some kind of, we had a discussion on that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I did reach out to Stephanie Landgraf with Boston Richards, who indicated to me that yes, most, the municipalities or everybody are looking at these as they fall under their definition of retail. So she did confirm that based on our current definition of retail, this use would fall under that. And I have that with me. Let's see. I can pull out that definition and just read that to you real quick. An establishment engaged in the selling of goods or merchandise within the enclosed buildings to the general public for personal or household consumption, which is open to the general public during regular business hours, and which has display areas that are designed and laid out to attract the general public. So this would fall within there as goods or merchandise.
See, that's my thought process is on that is that it's not retail because it's not open to the general public. Because it's not right now in Ohio, it's not recreational. Now, if it was recreational, then I think it would fit perfectly under a retail establishment because recreational would be open to the general public. As such, you have to have a card issued by the state. If you don't have a card issued by the state, you can't go in there. Well, you can go in, but you can't do anything. I mean, you can't purchase anything. They'd make you leave. I mean, unless you have a card issued by the state, then you can't go in and just somebody just can't walk in off the street and make a purchase. You can't. It's against the law. So I would be that's the kind of thing that I'm not real sure that it actually really falls under retail because of that. I know some other people, some other municipalities or areas, locations may have a looser definition of retail, but when you talk about access to the general public, I mean, the general public does not have access to a dispensary. I did a little bit of research on this myself,
Right. Well, when I asked Stephanie too, she looked at our definition.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if Abby want to add to that, but I think
I wouldn't give an opinion different than Stephanie.
yeah, right. So I did look at I tried to look and see what some of the other townships in Wake County have done in regards to this. None of them have written anything into their zoning to address this use specifically. It was either Leroy or Madison Township that just recently passed a resolution from the trustees putting a moratorium on the use because they were more than likely getting inquiries and didn't have anything on the books yet that they're comfortable with. So I looked at City of Menor. They're not regulating it, so it would be allowed under their definition of retail. The City of Willoughby, they did something unique. They accepted it out of their definition of retail. They basically had a very similar definition like we did, but they added in the caveat except for marijuana products or something like that. So they kind of eliminated that use from their definition of retail as a way to regulate it.
So does Willoughby have something on the books for restrictions or to address it? Because you said except for marijuana products.
So that would
Did
not
they
be-
pick it up someplace
Therefore,
else?
No, I didn't
No.
see anything else
Okay.
where they addressed it.
Okay.
No, it was just within the definition of retail.
How does, if at all, conditional use permit fall into anything on this?
Well, I mean, if it was something that the board felt that we wanted to regulate, I mean, you could entertain setting it up as a conditional use permit or a permitted use. And if you wanted to do a conditional use, obviously you'd want to come up with some specific standards that you would want them to comply with. That way you could review it. I guess the BZA would review it on a case-by-case kind of basis as they came in.
Okay.
So where, when you look at the table of uses, well, when I was looking through the table of uses, I was trying to figure out where it would fit. Would it fit under, retail and personal services? I don't think it fits under retail and personal services. So then you drop from there. It's not trade business, it's not, entertainment and recreation, but that doesn't, I think it fails the sniff test there. I mean, the only other thing I could see would be like accessory uses,
How about Gardner Nursery?
right?
Well, I would say, I mean, as it stands right now, the law department has said that it fits, this use falls under our retail. So it's being treated as a retail use. If you wanted to regulate it separately than any other kind of retail store, then I think you need to then define it and then put it in, list it as a specific use on the table and then say where it could go and in which districts, and would you set it up as a permitted or conditional permitted use.
Could I ask, so Heather, you explained that Willoughby took it out of the definition,
Right.
ergo they banned it?
That's my interpretation of it, and therefore they're not allowing it. Yeah.
Well, and according to perusing the Ohio Revised Code, the first section under, what was that, limitations on number of cultivators, processors, or retail dispensaries by locality, it says that we have the authority to adopt a resolution to prohibit. So we could prohibit it. And, just nix the whole thing if we felt that was the right way to go. So is there any thought on the board with regards to that?
Why would we want this in Concord? Just a question.
I don't know.
Yeah. I'd be in favor of prohibiting myself. If they need this, they can go to Menor or Painesville or whatever. I don't think it's something we'd want in the township personally, but that's my opinion.
I worry about when I say, quote, it's for recreational use. Does that mean if these places that we allow in the township,
Yeah.
for them, recreational could be, I would see maybe them in summertime, sitting outside around tables and stuff, smoking it, while the public is all walking around and everything. I don't know if we'd want that to take place. I know I wouldn't be smelling that stuff in the air as you're walking around. And they say it's
Well, you
right.
gotta be
Like
500
Browns
feet
game.
away. If the wind's blowing the right way, you're all right. If it's not, then,
Yeah,
but, I mean, 500 feet away, you're not gonna be walking right next to them.
well, you would hope that's the case, but it depends on how many people might be out there. For example, you know,
Yeah,
and you get some of these people that have parties, there's going to be dozens of people out there all smoking, having a
Yeah, but-
good old time, and that could be a lot of smoke.
Well, if it becomes recreational,
Yeah,
there's not a whole hell of a lot you're gonna be able to do about that.
that's right. That's what I mean.
And it, you know, and from what I understand, there's legislation, you know,
it's a matter of time.
that's coming for Ohio to take it from a medicinal dispensary usage to a, you know,
Recreational,
to
yeah.
recreational.
Right.
And if it's recreational, then I don't know that there's really much we could do about it at that point. So then, you know, would there be? I mean,
We
Control
don't
it.
know yet. I think
yeah,
it's too
I mean,
early
if
to
it becomes
speculate.
recreational, then it basically is just a retail use,
Like cigarettes, you
right?
could ban it from indoors.
Right. But I'm saying as far as,
Yeah.
you know, where they could locate or what they
Yeah,
could do, you know,
true.
there would probably still be some things, you
Yeah.
know, with regards to schools and libraries and public parks and things like that. But I mean, outside of that, I mean, you know,
We
they
would
would
have
fall.
to wait to see if they give the authority to the municipalities to regulate that, right? I think, but today, the only thing we can do is the medicinal,
Right.
so,
What we do know is what's on the law, what's the law today,
correct.
so. Does anybody else have any thoughts on it? Hiram?
The more I hear on the discussion, the more I'm saying, let's hold off. Because it's only medicinal now. Well, I just changed my mind. Yeah, let's address it. Because I think it's around the corner. I do. Now, that doesn't mean anybody's gonna be flooding into Concord Township to put up a place, but why not? Why not put something on the books?
So would you be in favor of allowing but just defining where, or would you be in favor of prohibiting?
Allowing.
Okay. Frank, you're in favor of prohibiting?
Yeah.
I know, Rich, you said.
Prohibit, in my opinion.
Rich, you have any, Felice, do you have any,
Yes,
Thoughts?
yes. I'll go back to Stephanie's advice. You started, Heather, by explaining she interpreted retail establishments within an enclosed building, and those permitted uses are in 3 or 4 districts.
Correct.
So the map and the buffer is very helpful to me, recognizing that those prime areas, development, commercial, primarily commercial, business interchange, gateway business, and capital districts are potential sites because they meet the criteria. And I don't think that is good planning for the township to expose those areas to medical marijuana retail.
Thank you. I
And
forgot
I-
to say capital district when I first was talking about it. Yeah, thank you.
Capital, yeah. Yeah, capital, the restricted retail, it just, it doesn't fit the character of the areas there that are already developed as the businesses and retail, and so I'd like to see us prohibit it based on that reasoning.
Andy, what do you think?
I'm kind of torn, you know, between prohibiting and controlling where it can go. So, I tend to be, I probably would feel, I probably would feel okay about if we were to kind of ratchet down where, define where it could go as a permitted use versus outright prohibition. But, I mean, that's my thought. So.
Now, would everybody's opinion change if it was recreational use approved by the state first and then with us?
I don't think we'd have a choice then. It's legal.
We could still prohibit it.
Well, what you could do is you could that's why my thought was to narrow down the location. That way, if it does even if we don't get any interest from a dispensary standpoint, from a medical basis, if it becomes recreational, then we'll have a kind of a predefined area where we would want it to be. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know how you can do that, because it'd be like alcohol, right? It'd be controlled probably similar way. You could sell it retail at a drugstore, you could sell it at a gas station, you could sell it at a grocery store.
I don't know.
I mean, if it's like alcohol.
I know I was in Michigan, and I think in Michigan it's recreational, and they have facilities. There's facilities.
Does it have to be like a state store, like liquor?
Yeah, there's facilities that are. I don't think they're dual. I don't think they're selling it out of other retail establishments. Like Giant Eagle. Like Giant Eagle has a liquor store.
True.
I don't think in Michigan that that a Giant Eagle would have a marijuana dispensary. I think they're standalone. At least what I saw. What I saw, there were standalone facilities that were dispensaries. I was in about a month ago. I was in Sterling Heights and Madison Heights, and I was going to visit a client, and I was on a major thoroughfare, and there was a couple dispensaries. There was a couple facilities on that thoroughfare, and they were clearly marked, and they were. Establishments, but they were standalone facilities. They were. There was a building, that was in of itself. It wasn't a part of like a strip plaza or anything like. It was a facility.
Well, if we prohibited it now, we'd have to revisit it if it became legal, right? So we'd have to change at that point in time.
How would that work? Would that be acceptable, Counselor?
Yeah, just, even if you don't revisit it, that portion just wouldn't, ever hold water anymore, but we would wanna take it off, but.
Do we expose ourselves from a prohibition standpoint?
No, there's no harm in it.
Okay.
That's the course we're gonna take now. It's just, who knows what the future's gonna hold and how the law ends up changing as far as marijuana and marijuana in general, so. We'll just have to see.
Well, if we're gonna pick a spot, I would just wanna pick one spot. Someplace neutral around, away from everything if at all possible. Distance-wise as possible. And that would be the only place to put it. I think we'd have better control over it for one thing. In a sense.
Well, I'm sure they're gonna need a license from the state, aren't they?
would think
I would
so.
assume
Oh, yeah.
so,
I would think
just
so.
like liquor.
Yeah, I would think so.
I would assume.
So there's the control, to some extent, I guess.
Can I just add, I guess if you were gonna if you were going down the route to try to pick a district or a place, maybe kind of look at the purpose statements for those different districts that we currently allow retail in, and see if one of those kind of sounds like it fits better.
Well, currently it's medical, so why wouldn't it go in a medical district? If that's what it is.
Like where the hospital is.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
in the Gateway Health District,
yeah.
right? Because it's considered medical only.
Right. Well, I think it's kind of benign over there. It would be benign in that area too.
Yeah,
You know,
there's
from the
nothing over
standpoint,
there.
you know, if we were to put it in there, I think it would be you know, it's kind of a dedicated, you know, there's not a whole lot of other areas in the township that would fit that. That's funny you mentioned it, because I was thinking that. I mean, well, why not the health district?
Well, considered that it's labeled medical
Right,
marijuana.
Since it's dispensary and medical usage, I thought that might not be a bad location. And would there be room there for that, Heather? If somebody wanted to put a dispensary in there, is there enough space in that area? Or is it all pretty much?
Are you talking about the Gateway business, like where the hospital is and?
Gateway Health.
Yeah.
Oh, Gateway Health?
Gateway Health.
Gateway
Well,
Health is
Gateway
even
Health, we
smaller
don't
'cause
even
it's just
permit
these
any
two-
residential, or we don't
Because
permit
that really
retail.
restricts it.
Well, hold on.
Gateway Health is very restrictive because there's only two little areas.
Yeah. Basically, in order to do anything under Gateway Health, you have to request to rezone. There's no vacant land currently zoned Gateway Health. So I don't know that anyone would, they'd have to go through a minimum 90-day rezone process to even get to Gateway Health. And then that might be enough disincentive right there for someone to not even move forward with it, because of just the lengthy process that they'd have to get through. And then is it permitted or is it conditionally permitted, and then going through that process. So it'd be extremely difficult, because the only two pieces of property that are Gateway Health right now is the site where Concord Village Skilled Nursing Facility is at Capitol Parkway, and then the assisted living facility on Auburn. When you look at Gateway Business, and the purpose of that,
Yeah, it's all down Auburn.
it's a district that offers a balance of personal services, office, and retail uses along major thoroughfare while supporting surrounding businesses and local residents. And then it talks about the design and grouping. So I don't know if it fits that district either. To be honest, these sites probably want to fit into places like Crowell Crossing, Gristmill Village. They just want to sneak in a 2,000 to 3,000 square foot facility and move in and be done. There are a lot of extensive regulations that they have to comply with as far as security with the state and having a security system, and there's times that they're allowed to be open and when they have to be closed. I didn't print any of that stuff out for you, but they have a lot of extensive additional regulations that they have to comply with the state as well, that tries to, I think, offset any potential negative impacts that these kind of uses that may bring to the area. But obviously, well, I know there's one in Painesville Township, and there obviously it is approved for medicinal use, which means there are medical benefits to having these, and with the hospital close by and our aging population, I would think that there would be some demand from Concord Township residents to potentially frequent these kind of places. So I don't know that you would put it in a district, Gateway Health, that would really be extremely difficult to even get anything approved under that district. I don't.
So you're thinking Gateway Business?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think that's a better option than the Gateway Health, but it does open it up to a lot more potential of them being there if you don't set additional restrictions on there. Because if you look at Gateway Health right now, there's really nothing there's no parks, schools, or playgrounds that are going to come into play. So.
Well, that's what I like about the Gateway Health, or
Yeah.
the Gateway Health or the Gateway Business, because it's kind of an isolated area.
Yeah.
It would be next to the community center, though.
Yeah.
There could be, anyhow.
And then if you look at,
It's great for the image.
it's kind of jumping around a little bit, like under B1 restricted retail, I mean, pretty much Gristmill Village is out currently, while the Goddard School is still there. If something were to ever happen to the Goddard School, then that could change, you know.
Right. Yeah, that Goddard School takes up a pretty big chunk there
Yeah, and
with
then
the
the other
500-foot buffer.
So there's a little bit. It's all offices right now, where the other on Auburn Road to the north of that, and where Red Hawk is. That's the other lot that's B1 right there.
Right.
And then other than that, I mean, even if you go over to like Concord Plaza by 84 and Johnny Cake there, those are out too, just because of the proximity of the
church,
schools
school,
and the
church.
churches that are over
Yeah.
there. So that's not really viable over on that side of the township. And then you're basically looking at the corners of the intersection of Girdled and Ravenna Road. We know that intersection currently is somewhat limited. It has some challenges as far as being developed due to current lack of access to sanitary sewer. But it's possible, I guess, but I don't know that they would want to locate there off the main, corridor. So.
Yeah, I think if we were going to look at, I think that the one that probably, when looking at the zoning map, without the big buffers anywhere, I think probably the best area would be like the gateway business. Because it's far enough away from Auburn Career Center, it's far enough away,
Well, there is some a little bit south there, close to
right on the other side of on the other side of the Capitol Parkway, a little piece.
Well, should we pick a spot or table it for a while? Give it more thought.
What's the
Any action we take would be recommendation to the Board of Trustees. We can
right?
Right, yeah.
We'd have to come up with the right language and come back next month to
Yep.
flush it out more.
Right.
Well, any additional opinions on this as to location? If we were going to, I know we've got three members have voiced the position of just flat out prohibiting.
Well, it's clear to me that there's just nowhere that it fits. It just doesn't fit in Concord.
It's kind of what I'm saying.
And so if it doesn't fit, why not prohibit it for now and then see what happens if state laws change? We don't lose anything by doing that, and we sort of protect ourselves from where it might end up.
And the state allows us to do it, so.
Yeah, as long as
we
it's
won't
legal
be-
to prohibit
We won't
under
get
the
any
state.
static, right?
Right.
Yeah, the state will be supportive,
Right.
so.
So then how would that work? Would if we were to put that language in, where would that go?
Well, I probably want to confirm with legal on that. There's probably a couple ways we could do it. I mean,
Yeah, you can work together and see what would just,
if it's a change in the definition, similar
Right.
to what Willoughby
Willoughby
did,
did,
or some
Yeah.
other language.
it's a whole new resolution. We can see.
Okay.
Now, so then if we did that, would there be a public hearing in that process, or? Would
Yeah, it
we
would still be a text amendment. Yeah, we'd still have to go through the,
Okay.
amendment process, yeah.
Gateway business on Wellness Way. What more do you want? Right?
Well, this way.
Go get some marijuana and be well on your way.
Well, this way. This way,
It
yeah.
fits.
Ironically.
A pun on words. It's cool.
So, what is the board's pleasure at this point on this? Do you want to go with prohibition and then let Heather work on some language with legal as to how we would do that?
I think that's my preference.
I agree.
I'm open.
Yeah, I am too. I don't feel strongly.
I'm
one
not
way or
dead
the
set
other.
against it.
I'm not dead set against it, but I'm not 100% in favor either. So, that's kind of part of what my thought process is. I just don't know that it necessarily fits in Concord. But if it's coming and there's inquiries or there's opportunities and things like that happen, I think we would be better off addressing it than just kind of kicking a can down the road.
Well, if you look at it that way, if it becomes law in Ohio
For recreational.
for recreational, that's not really a big step, but it's something that we don't know much about. And then if we have an applicant in Concord Township, that's a big leap, really, right there. So I don't think we'd be hurting ourselves by, if it becomes recreational, then maybe we can come back to the table and think about it some
I
more.
think we'd have to, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we'll just have to follow that closely and see how it moves, so.
Right.
We can stay on top of that to see how the state's gonna regulate it and what kind of authority they're gonna give us to.
Why don't we try that?
All right.
It's a good idea.
So why don't you work with legal then, on some language and where we would put that into the resolution from a prohibition standpoint, and then we'll go from there.
We'll see what kind of response we get from the public hearing.
Well, this, and again, I was thinking about that when I was pulling into the parking lot. I was thinking, now this is a prime example.
Okay.
Where I'm sure there's some pretty strong opinions out there in the community on this. I'm sure there are.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that there aren't strong opinions on this. So and it's befuddling that there's no interest. But I can guarantee you, if there's an application and and then all of a sudden it becomes a reality, there's going to be a lot of interest. But right now, this is what I'm talking about. When I look to the community for some guidance or some input, this would be the time to do it. If you've got some thoughts from a community standpoint, I think now would be a good time to voice your opinions instead of waiting until we get to all the way to the point of a public hearing, and then it becomes very difficult to kind of turn the ship. Once we set this course, it becomes difficult to start making major, accommodations or major changes. So it would be nice if there is an interest in the community on this. I would like to get some feedback. I'd like to hear some people's thoughts and opinions on this before we get too far down the road.
Well, Andy, when we worked together on the comprehensive plan, we did a survey
Right.
to get input from the community. So I think something like this, we should do the same thing and see what kind of response we get. I know medical has been proven to be very helpful, especially to people that have serious illnesses. It's been found to help them ease their pain, and I can understand that. But recreational, I still got mixed emotions about that.
Right.
But I'd like to find out what the public has to say.
Yeah, I'd be interested, and I encourage anyone out there that is watching or
Yeah.
is paying attention to what's going on. If you've got some opinions, you can submit them electronically, you can send email, you can, stop by the town hall and drop something off, whatever. I would appreciate, some input. Would be nice to have that. It would help us in our process, so.
And a lot of people take it among themselves to start a petition drive,
Right.
going around getting signatures. So it
Right.
might go that far. And if it does, that's fine.
Okay, so you'll work on prohibition language with legal, and then you'll have some stuff for us to review at our next meeting,
Yes.
which strangely enough is going to be 2022. Hard to believe. Okay, so now let's move on to The environmental restoration information that we've been provided. Heather, you want to give us a little bit of background on this and what we have here?
Sure. First of all, this evening in front of your seats, just for your reference, is the version of the updated RCD text that the trustees passed. They did approve all of your recommendations on all the amendments. Just so you know, these will become effective on December 17th. But I just brought this tonight so we could kind of maybe refer back to it. We'll still mail you out the replacement pages for your binders, so don't worry about that.
Yeah, I got that. You sent that, right? Didn't we get some replacement?
That was,
What
if you received anything, that was with the outside dining. Yeah.
Correct.
You'll be getting something soon about
With
this to put,
okay.
yeah, and they'll be holes punched in there so you can just put them right in the box.
Right, okay.
But, you know, while we were going through all these original amendments that will now be effective later this month, we were always talking about, like, one of the recommendations in the comp plan was this environmental restoration plan, and what if a new RCD project comes in where the property's already been disturbed, maybe it was old farm fields or something else like that. The soil and water folks had recommended that we request people submit this restoration plan. So we finally got some feedback due to, you know, summers are crazy, vacations and all that kind of stuff. But I did get some text here from Dan at Soil and Water and his thoughts on, you know, what those restoration plan components should be. And even when we were looking at this back in August of earlier this year, we kind of had some placeholder things of where we might even put this in. So if you, on the new section that I gave you that's going to be effective, if you turn to page 16.18.
16 what?
16.18.
16, 18?
Yeah.
Okay.
On the bottom, that subsection E, it's actually 16.24 CE, where we talk about any land or any area within the designated open spaces to be preserved in its natural state. And then we talk about if it is disturbed during construction, which it could happen, you know, open space can't always be completely protected during construction, that we would want them to submit this landscape plan. Well, maybe with this language that we're looking at tonight, we would remove some of this text and replace it with, rather than a landscape plan, a restoration plan. And then there's also, and that's just, you know, restoring areas that were disturbed during construction, but then there's another component of, you're submitting a project where the open space is already disturbed. What is your intentions on how you're going to repair that, and what's the open space going to be? And that's what I feel like this language does a really good job of asking the developer to do and what to submit. So I was thinking that if we were going to adopt something like this would be a new section under 16.24, and then we would modify this existing language here too, to reference it. But basically, you can read it right here, but we're asking them to submit this restoration plan along with their preliminary plan. So when they come in and they're requesting the rezone and they're requesting your approval on the preliminary plan, you can also see this restoration plan. What is their intentions? What are they going to do with the open space? And the criteria that is listed here, basically asking them to replicate, expand, and enhance the natural areas using native species. And then he goes into explaining that it should be prepared by a professional who is qualified to do that plan and provide an actual plan drawn to scale that we can evaluate to determine whether or not we want to approve it. Not only this plan, but also a narrative of how the preparer was qualified to be provided to the township, why they selected the restoration habitat or natural cover type for this project, why is it appropriate, and then they also pointed to some resources that they could use for plant selection, really focusing on Ohio's native plants. So there's a source there, but they could also use other sources. We want the plan to have an explanation, a narrative about what type of plant and tree species selections, and what is the long-term maintenance plan for that proposed open space. So how are they going to maintain that over the long run? And then just kind of, it's a little bit redundant here. You submit it with the development plan. I think we clean that up a little bit and say with the preliminary and probably the final plan. We want to see some final tweaks on that too, the final development plan approval.
What is an SWP3 calc?
Stormwater pollution plan.
Pollution plan, okay. I figured out what the SW was, but I didn't know what the P stood for.
We're 2/3 of the way there.
And we ought to
And that's like
define
the soil
that
and
in
water
here.
thing, because that, I'm sorry.
We ought to define that in here.
We could spell it out rather than using the acronym.
Okay.
Yeah,
That works too.
yeah. So there's no question. It also gives the township the right to ask the state and county to help review it on behalf of us to make sure that, to assist in the review of the evaluation of it.
Right.
And in number 6 here, we do already kind of have some language, but it wouldn't hurt to rehash it here. I think that just ensuring that they know that this open space will be deed restricted from any future development, any further development than what was allowed within the restoration plan. And then again, really honing in on, and I know in our latest update, we said we strongly encourage the open space to be protected by a conservation easement, and what soil and water is again kind of echoing that whenever possible. They really like to see that open space protected with a conservation easement, with a public agency. So.
Well, I read through this a couple of times. I thought it was very comprehensive. Maybe a couple of tweaks someplace, but
Yeah.
this is really laid out nice, I think.
I think it is too, and it gives them a lot of flexibility. It didn't come in and say like it has to be this way or that way. Like, we're not asking someone to come in and reforest everything. We're leaving that kind of open to them. What do you think, and why are you choosing that? And giving them some flexibility.
This
Yeah.
was what I was hoping to get like about 6 months ago.
Yeah, that's what we were all. Yeah.
You know, this I think that this would have been very helpful when we were doing this, and we had asked for it several times, and we got crickets. But this turned out to be. This is a nice document that would have been nice to have before we did all this work, and it would have been. I think we could have done a lot with this and incorporated it in easily.
Well, I think it'll be easy to.
Right, I do.
still
Yeah,
add
I
in,
do too.
yeah,
But it just
yeah,
it's kind of
Yeah.
cart meet horse.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I thought it was very. There's a little bit of redundancy in there, but I think for the most part, I think it's pretty well. It's a nice little outline, a good framework for this. So.
I think we would probably want to have a little bit a better understanding, what is previously disturbed lands. I know that might come up as a question. I don't know that I have that answer tonight. But I mean, it's easy to cite an example of old farm fields. I mean, obviously that was disturbed. There's probably old tiles down on the ground used for drainage and things like that, and you would want that restored back to some more of a natural state. But I'm trying to think what else would constitute disturbed lands.
It could be a gas well, an old gas well in a field.
Oh, okay.
Removing that, right?
Yeah.
So we have that in our neighborhood.
Is this a typo on the number 6 at the last sentence? That permeant, should that mean
Permanent, yeah.
permanent? I just
Yes, sir.
I'm thinking
Yeah.
it look like it should be permanent. Okay, I just
Yeah.
want to make sure.
Thank you.
I glanced right over that. Didn't even see it.
Gotcha.
Didn't even see
Gotcha.
it.
See, you're not the only wordsmith in the group.
That's right.
Just so you're not.
you know, I
Once they
haven't
give you the-
really, we haven't reviewed this with legal counsel yet.
Right.
Either, so
Yeah, I think this is a nice framework. I think this is something we could definitely work with
Yeah.
to get this incorporated in, I bet.
I agree.
So I think we just kind of clean it up a little bit, and then we figure out where we're gonna insert it, and then we're good to go. I think it's good stuff.
If you could do us a favor,
yeah.
talk to Soil and Water and tell them thank you very much.
Oh yeah.
It's a good job. We liked it.
Yeah, and then figure out where we would insert, you know, where we would actually insert that in there. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I'd probably want to meet with Abby and go over, you know, the specific language and make sure they're good with it. And,
Right.
you know, they're appropriate.
How soon do you think we can get a final?
Can we bring something back for January or, yeah. We should
Is that
be able to
too
put
aggressive?
something together for January, at least another draft.
No, think you can get that?
January will be fine.
Okay.
We can try, yeah.
And then we would have to have a public hearing, right, for this too?
Well, yeah, and
Right.
depending on, you know, if we have both these kind of in pretty good draft form and you guys are comfortable with it, you could initiate something in January for the February meeting and just start moving with it. Depending.
Okay. All right.
You could just couple it
Any
together.
any comments from the board, Frank? Any input, additional thoughts, or anything on this?
Other than just what I said, Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Hiram, anything?
I like it. I like it.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Rich, hi, please.
Not to be contradictory, but, well, my first read is I find it onerous. I find the requirements in here, the explanation, and all of the issues. What is our outcome, our desired outcome from all of these requirements?
Put the land back the way it was.
Back the way it was.
Right.
So, back the way it was, and that's what Soil and Water was asked to provide. A plan to how to restore it back to the way it was. I don't know. I just find the requirements, while they are very specific and I think onerous, but I go to number 6, and if we go to that length, and we make a developer go to that length, we shouldn't say whenever possible. That if they go to that length to restore and preserve and do the plan in a very, I read, scientific way, it must be protected with the public agency. We shouldn't allow it to be anywhere else in terms of preserving what all those hoops and hurdles they're going through to develop. What I see here is a very, I won't use the word onerous again, very detailed plan to restore property.
Owners is appropriate.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah, that's my read, but I don't object to it. It feels like a little over the top, unless if our outcome is just to restore it, then we better make sure it's preserved. It's preserved by a responsible agency and nobody else. The conservation.
Well, that's why I think we leave out wherever possible. You set
That's
the rules, and this is the way it has to be done. Because a lot of developers, for example, they don't care, or they're looking for guidance. So if you have it spelled out, this is the way it has to be. Period. Because when you say whenever possible, it's open for interpretation.
But particularly since the requirements in here are really.
Right. They're really finite.
Yes, yes.
And as an engineer,
Yes.
I like it
This
that
better
way.
be a beautiful open space. We will all
Well, that's
enjoy.
what we're hoping for. Give Mother Nature
Yeah,
a good start again.
yeah.
So aside from its onerousness,
Don't object.
you don't object. Okay.
Well, you know, when we kind of had some of this language in there, some of our work session stuff earlier this year, I do remember a developer was very concerned about the definition of what this is and what this was going to entail. So this is kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
So I do somewhat agree with Rich that if we were gonna make someone go through this, that it
I'm
shall be.
speaking from experience on
Yeah,
this one.
yeah. And then when you think about like, okay, so if we have an RCD where you have open space that's not been previously disturbed, the way our zoning currently says, we prefer to have a conservation easement, but we're not requiring it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that's a problem or not. So if it's not disturbed and it's open space, we don't require it to be protected with the conservation easement. But if it is disturbed and then you fix it, it has to be a conservation easement. And there are costs associated with having conservation easements. People don't do it for free.
Right.
There's monitoring and everything. So these developers are going to have to give money to someone like Soil and Water or Western Reserve Land Conservancy to take that easement, and there's a cost associated with that, so they can come out and do the annual inspections and things like that. So
And they should do it because they're getting a benefit for conservation development in itself, the concept.
the developer,
Yeah.
But look at that big picture. The homeowners association is gonna pick up the cost, and it's gonna go back to the homeowner. The developer isn't gonna foot the bill for this. He's gonna put that in the HOA, saying, you're gonna pay for this on a monthly or on a yearly basis. So it's not on the developer, it's on the individual homeowner. That's where it's gonna go. So,
Yeah, when you buy into that, that should be an understand
yeah,
that you do.
so,
Because we have that with our homeowners association, that people pay a dues, and it's to keep up the development.
right.
You know, and they like that. So that's why they move into areas like that, to keep it that way.
Well, we'll have opportunities to tweak and adjust.
I'm sure.
Maybe pare back the onerousness.
yeah. I mean, how would you, if it wasn't so onerous, like what would make it a little bit more streamlined, but still, give us the end result of, restoring, and your,
Yeah.
just back to something a little bit,
Eliminate A, B, D. Just utilize this resource of species list. Provide us a plan from a certified forester or a responsible organization, and we'll review it. That's all. I mean,
what, requiring someone to submit that before they even get the property rezoned, I mean, is that a significant additional investment?
no.
Okay, okay.
Oh no.
So asking for it at preliminary, I think would be fine.
I think so.
Okay,
My turn.
Mr. Peterson?
I agree with Rich. The word I was going to use was overkill instead of onerous, but when I look at this, we talked about this issue. First of all, this only applies to accidental damage that happens during the construction process. Maybe a tree gets knocked over, maybe a little land gets disturbed. It's not talking about, that's really the purpose of this. We went through this in great detail back in August, and we came up with what we already have in here. And then I happened to watch the trustee meeting, and they struggled with the same paragraph, and they came to the same conclusion that we did, that this was fine. When I watched the trustees discuss this, because they had the same dilemma we had on that topic. And then putting this in here, I'm not against it, it's just, I thought we said enough in the original that this wouldn't be required. Because if we go to onerous, I don't want to present this to a developer and have it appear to be too onerous, because it's only applicable if there's accidental damage, but it kind of comes across awful big for that. Whereas we said the same thing in fewer words in the original document, my thought. If you want to put this in here, I'm not opposed to it, but I think we already said that in fewer words in the original document, because we struggled with that one.
Well, we didn't have any guidelines, that's why. It was kind of a, we were kind of,
Yeah.
winging it.
But the trustees came to the same conclusion that we did that this was fine.
Well, and if, Rich, if you don't mind, I thought I kind of thought it was two things. I thought it was restore if you accidentally disturb, but then also if you come in with a piece of land that the whole thing has been farmed for the last 100 years and it's already disturbed, then we want this plan. So I think we can do it two ways. One is if you're coming in with previously disturbed land, we need some environmental restoration plan, even if this is a little bit more streamlined than this, not as onerous. But then maybe we still need to tweak this language on the incidental disturbances and still require that, maybe what we have already in here might work for that.
Yeah.
We might need to look at that language again, because we want to still maybe it's not a landscape plan, maybe,
Right.
maybe it does kind of mirror a little bit of this restoration plan. But does that make sense, or am I the only one that thought that?
No,
Okay,
I hear you.
that's a point
Okay.
it's a point well taken. Right.
it's kind of two things.
Especially like you say, if you get into a big piece of farmland, for example, you want them to do something with it that's going to bring it back in.
Because I know, like, when Lily Farms was approved, that RCD, we didn't really have anything to require the developer to come in and, what are you going to do with the old farm fields? It was, although I did work with the developer to submit some kind of landscape plan on how he was going to restore that, but it would have been nice to have a little bit of guidelines in there, or requirements to tell him, okay, well, this is what we want to, this is what you need to submit to us. And that original plan that he provided to me, I immediately went to Soil and Water and said, look, he wants to turn this into a meadow, and they came back and said, well, how's he going to maintain it? And then you go back to the developer and you're like, how are you going to maintain it? Because there's different things you need to do with meadows, you cut them certain times of the years or burn them or things like that, which I don't even know about. And then we started asking more questions. The developer's like, oh, well, instead of meadows, I'm just going to plant trees, So it was kind of a back and forth, and we did come up with some kind of landscape plan, but there's no real laid out, like, how they're going to maintain that over the years. So I can see that being potentially an issue down the line with the homeowners in that development on when it goes, how does the HOA really maintain that? There's going to be trees planted and things like that, but it's supposed to also be left natural, so you really not supposed to go in there and manicure lawns, so there could be some issues on that open space and how they maintain it. Some questions, I guess.
Point
So
well
I think,
taken.
but if we were to adopt something like this, everyone would know what the plan is and how they're going to maintain it.
Right. Point well taken.
Any other comments? All right. Moving on to item number 2 on the agenda under new business, we would like to do an approval of the minutes for the October 5th zoning commission meeting. I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would like to move that we approve the October 5th, 2021 zoning commission meeting minutes as written.
I'll second that.
Do a second. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed? Let the record reflect we had 5 ayes, no nays, no abstentions. Okay, item number 3 on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the November 2nd zoning commission meeting. I will entertain a motion.
I have a question
Oh, you find something?
on page, on page 6, page 19. It appears Mr. Lingenfelter has been demoted to vice chair. On line item 20.
It happens.
Or you said those words, but I don't think so.
Where was that?
It's line 20,
It's only one word.
big page 6, big page 6,
Big page 6. Big
small page 19,
Small page 19.
line item 20.
It's an exchange between Heather and.
Yeah, probably. You said right.
So I think Andy said it. So if you want to take
Well,
it.
since I was in the thread, I would.
Yeah, that's what
have
I
to
said.
I would have to assume
Yeah.
that you're right. So,
That is my only comment.
so on big page 6, small page 19, we want to strike the word vice out of, for the sanity of Mr. Hiram Ruppert.
Oh, you really go through this stuff, don't you?
I read them, yes.
That's good.
I do.
I mean, that's
Texas
good.
stuff.
I'm glad.
He's good at it.
That's good. I'm glad.
Very good at it. Okay, I will entertain a motion with the correction noted.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of November the 2nd as corrected this evening.
Okay, have a motion made?
I'll second.
Good for you. You should.
You should.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain?
1 abstention, so let the record reflect we have 4 ayes, no nays, and 1 abstention. So the minutes for the November 2nd as corrected are accepted. Item number 4 on the agenda is the correspondence report by the zoning commission members. Frank?
None, Mr. Chairman.
Hiram?
None, Mr. Chairman.
Rich?
Yes, I received an email. Apologize, I didn't have the name of the individual, but it was a concerned resident objecting to the Sheets gas station project. It was a polite email. But
But you didn't sign it, or you just...
I don't recall.
Oh, yeah,
I'm sorry.
okay.
I apologize. I didn't have
Okay.
it with me.
But you did sign it, though.
Yes. Oh, yeah. The name.
Oh, okay.
It was not anonymous.
Okay, okay.
Mr. Peterson?
I had some continued discussion with the abandoned house on Beers Drive with the homeowner association president and also with Morgan McIntosh. They're working on that problem.
The one we talked about before? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Anything else?
No.
I too received an email from a concerned resident voicing their opposition to the Sheets gas station. I received an email from the wife, and I replied very nicely and politely to her concerns. And then the husband then sent me an email as well, appreciating my comments and letting me know that he was happy to know that there are other people that were concerned about it as well. So, but that was the only information that I had with regards to the Sheets gas station. So
My wife mentioned last night that on the Holden Ridge site, next door type thing, that tonight's meeting was going to be jam-packed because of the Sheets issue. And I said, it's not on the agenda. So when I came in here, I thought we were going to have a new agenda, but we're not. So obviously,
That's appeals.
the person, who wrote the Holden Ridge item, and I don't know who it was opposed to that or had some strong issues or concerns with it. So,
did that was not addressed at
Correct.
at the BZA meeting, right? The last one.
Table.
They
Correct.
because they had a
They
couple of
tabled-
they had a
we
couple
didn't
of
have a-
abstentions, I think.
We did not have a full board of 5 in order to vote on that, so
Right.
the applicant chose to wait. So it will be in front of the board tomorrow night.
Oh, that's going to happen tomorrow night. Now
Tomorrow
it's
night.
back on the agenda for tomorrow night. Okay, good to know. Okay, item number 5 on the agenda is audience participation. And since we don't have an audience this evening, I guess we won't have any participation. So is there anybody on the phone tonight? No? Okay. So then that item is closed for now. And I will continue to encourage residents to contemplate that. We have a number of issues that we're considering right now, and I would certainly like to see some people, give some input. Next meeting of the zoning commission will be January 4th, 2022. And I think I'm sure we'll have some things to talk about.
Mr. Chairman, can I bring up an issue?
Certainly.
In going over the November 2nd meeting minutes, I got a little bit more concerned with how we handle things. What the process is between us as the zoning commission and the BZA. Between us and the trustees. It appears that both of them are disjointed. We discussed in here that Canterwood came through here, went to the trustees, got flip-flopped all around, never came back here. I don't think that's right. On the second issue, on the first issue is, goes through here, or it goes through BZA, or it goes through here. What I would like to see is a flow chart that both the BZA, the zoning commission, and the trustees all approve. To say, if it goes through the zoning commission and then it goes to the trustees, they don't like it and so on and so forth, then it should loop back to us before it goes back to the trustees. And the same thing with BZA. It appears from looking at here, from what was the guy's name? Orla? No. Balco.
Mr. Balco. Yeah.
Said, gee, all I have to do is get it approved through BZA and it's through here with nothing. I don't think that's right. So I think that those two issues are more important than medical marijuana, in my opinion.
May I?
Please.
We didn't talk before this meeting, so here
No,
are
we didn't.
my notes exactly echoing what you just said. I was looking, I didn't know if it was an opportunity to, because just closing the meeting here to see what we want to talk about January 4th. I completely agree to the point where if I ask a few questions, I went through the resolutions, at least glanced at some of them here, and not understanding the history. When I look at the responsibilities in section 11 of section 8 of that's our zoning commission, section 8. It's strictly looking at zoning text amendment. Later on, it would appear somewhere between, in the early 2000s, we were given the authority for site plan review under section 36. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It's about 2007, 2008.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, but prior to that, the planning department approved the site plans
Zoning department, correct.
and then issued a zoning permit.
Yes,
The zoning commission never received a site plan.
right.
Okay, so I was trying to understand the process, which is exactly to your point, Hiram. The process now, the site plans come to the zoning commission, even though we're called the zoning commission. So, just a play on words. I look at the definition under section 9 of the BZA, and they're strictly to look at hardship cases and variances. That's all they're charged to do. It seems to me and in fact in the minutes of November 2nd, I said this seems to be going around backwards. The BZA approved something without the zoning commission approving the site plan in the first place. It would seem to me we need to address that, because I can't agree with you more, Hiram. As I read those sections, and then when I go to the zoning permit section, and then section 36, and then specifically 36.9, which talks about major or minor changes, they never come back here. Even though it says that in 36.9. Again, it's just a quick read. It's the very last paragraph in section 36, which gave the authority for site plan review and approval to the zoning commission. But we're still called the zoning commission. Again, in my experience, that's why I completely agree with your points, Hiram, is that procedurally, the authority vested in the trustees, trustees designate a board to review a plan that is consistent with the master plan, with the development plan, with the interests of the community. And, okay, we're approved, except you're gonna need, there's some exceptions to this. That's usually when they appeal to the board, the BZA, after there is at least a conditional approval from the body that has the authority to approve the plan. All due respect, the BZA is very well qualified, but it's not the way I understand the definition of what they're charged to do. They're only charged to look at hardship and variances. When there isn't a full approval, again, that's I just wanted to echo exactly what you said, Hiram, because I was prepared with a couple notes. After reading, I got these things paper clipped in here just to start the conversation. Anyway,
Well, if I could add to that.
please, yeah.
One of the other duties of the BZA, and I haven't read that section in a little while, but they are the body that issues conditional uses. So, under the Ohio Revised Code, if we set that up as a conditional use, they can only approve that conditional use. The zoning commission does not have that authority to approve that conditional use.
Correct.
So,
correct.
in addition to the variances and the appeals.
Correct.
Right.
Before they apply for a conditional use,
You would like some preliminary review or.
it
yeah,
would seem
yeah.
to me that if the trustees designated the authority for the site plan to the zoning commission, it would seem to me that would come first
Right.
before a conditional use is granted.
Yeah, we should know exactly all of a sudden what they want to change it. They're designating a hardship. Well, we have to know what that hardship is before we can make our decisions. We might not feel that it's appropriate, for what they're asking for. Right?
Well, obviously we didn't in the
Right.
case of the Sheets
Well,
gas station.
sheets for one
We
thing.
didn't, but we didn't, our points we made were not to address, it's not granting a condition, that wasn't our authority. But we
Right.
said it wasn't consistent with
The master
the
plan.
master
master
plan,
plan, right.
and in keeping with vision of the township, the location,
Right, exactly.
the gateway to the capital district, etc.
Right.
Anyway, I just think maybe that could be something for our, because you had suggested text, what else do we want to
Right,
talk
right,
about?
yeah, we brought that up last month, right.
Yeah, so,
Well, and, I mean, we could put together flowcharts of how things currently get approved and, the roles of, both boards.
place to start.
Yeah, as a place, okay, this is how the process currently is. I know that legal counsel is reviewing some of the stuff under site plan review that on another issue, on another development, an old development that's being re-resurrected, but it's something else we can look into, to try to improve, if improvement needs to be made there. The other thing is, some communities, and I don't know, I'm not suggesting that this is the way you would want to go, but they're kind of getting away from conditional uses and just, putting them in as permitted uses with certain factors that they have to comply with. So rather than making the car wash or the gas station a conditional use, you could make it permitted and still make them meet all this specific criteria, which then they wouldn't be in front of the BZA unless they needed a variance. But then that still goes back to your point.
Yes.
You would prefer to have your eyes on the site plan first rather than having to get the variances approved first. So you could be on board maybe with the variances, or and I don't even know that you could submit any kind of recommendation to the BZA. I don't even know if that's allowed, but I don't know.
I think we were restricted from that, Andy, our emails to the BZA,
Yeah.
having to do with public law,
So even if you
sunshine law.
yeah.
Well, yeah, that was one of the issues. I called Brandon, and talked to him because of that email, and interestingly, I didn't realize that was a violation. It's when you copy all.
Yeah,
It's when you get yourself in hot water.
I did.
Yeah, when you copy all, when you do a copy all to everybody, then at that point, then it becomes an issue with violating the sunshine laws. If we were to have a conversation with one or two people,
Right.
Then it's not
or exchange emails between a handful of people, as long as it doesn't constitute a quorum, then we're okay. But once you do, when you do a copy all, then there's everybody from the zoning commission, everybody from the BZA, and at that point you're in violation of the sunshine laws, which I didn't realize didn't think of that as I just even in an email correspondence, I didn't think of that as a violation, but that was very interesting that Brandon brought that up. That was good stuff. It was a good learning experience. It's something you have to be aware of. You don't think about that. But I don't know. Is there? We're a recommending board to the trustees. Nothing that we do is permanent. We just make recommendations.
On amendments, but
On
on
the site
review,
plans.
Right, site plan,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying. But
You're the final authority on the site plan.
But I mean, on the majority of stuff we do, we're a recommending board, and the trustees have the ability to either, accept, modify, or reject our recommendations. So, but I agree. I think sometimes there are some things that go on that strike me as kind of strange or odd, and that there should be an opportunity for I think Canterwood is a great example of that.
That's another one.
It would have been nice to see. I felt like with the changes that were made and the things and how that thing went kind of sideways after the fact, it would have been nice for that to get kicked back to us to have further conversations about it, because I don't think that they would have gotten the same favorable response on some things after the fact.
Procedurally, the way Hiram was describing it, if the gentleman was here proposing the sheets and we objected to that location for that facility, and it's procedurally, you would think then a memorandum from the board, the chair, to the BZA is appropriate. It seems to me. And then the BZA is the heart. They determine whether it is a conditional use or not. I mean, they're the appeals court, if you will. So that's appropriate. I get that. At least we have our position as, well, we are a public body, so, but I don't know how that's communicated to the BZA. Because in text, in the resolution, that authority isn't given to us. It's not there, but somehow in 2007 we were given site plan. Do we know why?
I believe there was a change in the ORC that allowed townships to institute architectural review and give the authority to the zoning commission to review landscape plans.
Okay.
And that's what spurred this whole site plan review.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if I recall, it was a change in the ORC
Well, and
that gave us that opportunity, and that's when we assumed that role.
right.
Because you're right, I've been on the zoning commission before that, and I remember that we didn't have, that was all done through the zoning department with the zoning inspector, and in conjunction with the planning commission and things like that. We were not included in that process. So I think it's a great point. I think you both bring up very interesting points, and I think that it's always good to review that. And I don't know how much we're bound by the process with the ORC and I'm sure there are some things where we are bound to, we can't just arbitrarily make a change in the process is how it works. We'd have to think that there's some things that we are bound by that we have to follow.
Well, this is Concord Township.
I keep forgetting. But yeah, I mean, so there would, if there's some places where we could make some adjustments in that, I think we should consider that. I think it would be a good thing.
At least I think what we ought to know is what happens when. What happens if this happens, and then who goes where, who gets approved with whatever. Because right now, I'm in the dark. I don't know who approves what, what the BZA does. I mean, I know what they do, but when do they do it? And do we have any recourse or whatever? So I think if anything, we ought to have it written down.
Yeah. Let's say, for example, the Sheets was given a conditional use. They develop a site plan that comes back here. Correct?
Yes.
And we reject it. Just for
Yeah.
example.
Okay.
They go back to the BZA?
No, I don't think so. I think
Go-
at that point they would probably sue us. Honestly, right? I mean,
Because the BZA
depending on how
grant-
hard they really want to come to Concord, if you deny the site plan, then
No,
they'll move on
again-
to another community or they'll litigate.
It's just an example. I presume that the trustees are the final. It goes to.
No,
Oh, no?
no. Trustees aren't involved in any site plan review. The only thing the trustees are involved on
Oh,
are
right.
the
I'm
final
sorry.
say on the
Text.
zoning text
I'm sorry.
and the map amendments. And in this area, we could change with the PUDs and the RCDs if there are modifications. It doesn't have to go back to the trustees. That's
Right.
not set in stone with the state or the ORC. That's the way we have it written. So if we want to change, what happens, after the trustees approve it, we could look at, maybe it comes back to the zoning commission.
Well, I know that would have been nice, especially with this Canterwood.
Yeah.
Man, I was so frustrated about this whole thing that's been happening, and it's still happening.
Right, yeah, you were asking for
Still
an update,
going
yeah,
on yet,
yeah.
right? What they're trying to do.
Yeah, they keep changing their mind on things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're still at it yet.
I can't imagine.
Not with the township per se, but, they're slowly moving through the county approval process.
Yeah.
Well, take a look at 36.9.
Yeah, I looked at that.
Because the major, that's what's happening in Canterwood.
I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah, me too.
Doing that now.
36.9.
That's the last.
Last paragraph.
Oh, I clipped it.
I'll try to come back.
3610, sorry.
Okay.
3610.
It's on page 36.9. Deviations from the
Hiram would've
approved
caught
plan.
that.
It's even called
Hiram
deviations.
would have caught it.
Yeah, I don't want to call it.
Frank, it's even called deviations. Yeah, anyway. Deviations from approved plan.
Okay.
All right.
Anyway,
Anything else, gentlemen? A great discussion, by the way. I think that was very, very productive. That's
teed it up.
good stuff.
I'm glad I brought it up.
Yeah, I am too.
Just
I think it was
That's why I
very
brought the book.
right. I knew you brought that for something.
It
Nobody carries that around.
It wasn't
just
for
the hell
show.
of it.
I have mine out in my car.
Wait a minute, I have mine here.
Oh, you
So-
do?
But that great discussion. I think good exchange of information there. I
That's
really
agree with
appreciate
me all the
that.
time, gentlemen.
So,
Sleep with it.
I sleep.
all right. With that, if there's nothing else, this meeting is adjourned.
Thanks.
Everybody have a wonderful.